This is update number 4 for the Sun City Model Railroad Club, filmed in October of 2014, on location in Sun City, Arizona. My name is Richard Hayworth, and I've been doing a series of videos on the club's new layout, and here's the latest edition. I'm starting out with an overhead view. I actually put the camera on the end of a tripod and then grabbed the other end and stuck it as far out over the layout as I could, just to give you some kind of an overall idea of what the layout looks like. I couldn't get any higher because the ceiling is there, but I did want to give you some kind of an idea of what the layout overall looked like, and this is my attempt to do that. We're panning from the south end toward the north end, and I'll be showing you some detailed views a little bit later, but this is the overall layout. You can see the way it's constructed, designed for people to walk in and view the layout, which is one of the requirements the Sun City Club has, is to have this a view available and viewable by the public. So there's this real serpentine construction that they did, but it actually affords a great many viewing opportunities as well as videoing opportunities. But here you go. This is the south end again, and looking toward the reconstruction of the cliffs and the mountains that look like the ones we have in Sedona. They have added the backdrops that you see, the clouds and things like that, and finished up a lot of the work, so it's very close to being done. They tell me it's never going to be done, but I guess that's the same with any layout. Anyway, this is the main passenger terminal area, and they've got about 7 tracks running through here. And most of the work has been done, and there's that backdrop again. So they're separating, because the layout winds back and forth on itself, they needed these backdrops there to kind of separate these things out. This is an example of the mountain building that they do and the kind of plaster of Paris work that they do and the detail for the buildings. This is toward the north end of the layout.
Just give me a second.
And this is toward the south end of the layout, where they've got, the first time I've seen it in a long time, a U.S. Army train that they have there with searchlight cars and flat car carrying a tank. And then beyond that is a very detailed rendition of a scrapyard with a crane that has a magnet on it, one of these great big electromagnets they use to load and unload scrap from rail cars. And they put that together in a fairly realistic setting. And some of the building detail, and of course McDonald's. No railroad layout, I'm told, is complete without a McDonald's. They've got a lot of the sound installed, and a little bit later they turn the lights down for me, and I'll show you a semi-nighttime view. It's really kind of pretty. But a lot of the lights that they have working, you can't see when the lights are on, when the ceiling lights are on full, so they turned them down for me. Again, this is toward the south end of the layout, with a lot of plaster of Paris mountain work and so on. This is toward the center of the layout on the other side. There they've got an industrial backdrop behind the industrial buildings. And here's an idea of the detail. That's a grain of wheat lamp there. Just a little side shack next to the track that they have made look very realistic. There's one of our kid signs, "Do not touch." The kids come in and are fascinated by the trains, and of course they want to touch them, so we try and keep that danger to a minimum by putting up the signs. There's a Wisconsin Central engine for all of you Wisconsin fans who may be looking at the video. And this is a 12-minute video, so I wanted to give you the overview at the beginning, just in case you couldn't stay all the way through the video. But another shot of a small freight train weaving its way through some of the really interesting-looking scenery. The colors for all this stuff were based on photographs that they had. In one of my earlier videos, I showed you the books they used to act as templates for the colors they were going to be putting on these various rocks and canyon walls and so on. And you see that here. train coming out of the tunnel. And this is toward the the south end of the layout. This is their underground switching. Those are turtles, they tell me, underneath there, which are remotely controlled switches. I'll show you a diagram of the switching yard, but it's where trains are made up, and it's below the level and out of sight of the main layout. There's a switching panel for the makeup yard that resides right under the base level of the layout itself. Not quite sure how they see what they're doing, but they seem to manage. This is on the north end of the layout, some detail. There's a little village there, and I'm going to zoom in here and show you some of the detail. The stuff you can do with HO-sized gear is very, very amazing to me. Again, some more detail. This is a constructed from scratch, I believe, tower with the weathered wood, looking much like it would if it was in the Arizona sun for years and years and years. Again, just another idea of some of the scenery and the variation that they have. The different types of rocks, texture of the rocks, very interesting. This is toward the north end of the layout, and we see the passenger train we saw earlier coming by. And another little town implementation here where they put together some buildings and things like that for a bit of a way stop for trains and some activity on this part of the layout. The people you see walking around in the background are club members. Here's another view of a relatively large area in the center of the layout where they put an awful lot of auxiliary buildings and scenery and various kinds of structures. And somehow they tied all this together, all these different sections and areas. This is a little bit of a round table and a roundhouse toward the north end of the layout. Up on an upper level, they actually have 2 or 3 different levels that are visible in the layout as the terrain goes up and down, and the tracks follow it. And coming up on the right, coming in from the right, is going to see a hand-built trestle that I've shown in an earlier video. The very prideful owner did a great job with that, built it from scratch. More trestles and walkways, multi-layered tracks, and a lot of really great looking scenery. This again is at the north end of the layout. And a couple of club members walking around. And here's a locomotive that's about to start out and go across probably the biggest trestle bridge we have in the layout. The speed acceleration here is going to be a little bit unrealistic, but that's what I got. And I wanted to show you this suspension bridge. It's really a spectacular one with a great big deep canyon underneath it and some pretty spectacular scenery around it. Some of these scenes are so realistic you can just block out the external stuff and it really looks like there was a real train that we're photographing going through a real canyon. I think they call it the willing suspension of disbelief. There's a painted background behind some industrial type buildings in another part of the layout. And even though it's two-dimensional, it does add a three-dimensional feeling to what's there in front of it. Some more building detail. Just a huge variety of buildings. They really went to town. This is a downtown scene that I thought was worth showing you. Very detailed and, again, unique. Each one of these spots that they have is kind of a way station, and the layout has its own character to it. They put it together pretty well, but look at the coloring on the cliffs behind the town. Amazing stuff. Well researched and well executed. Again, the south end of the layout, we were just looking at this in a little bit more zoomed in mode. And this is going to be a panning around from lower down, just to give you some idea of the way it would look if you were standing there looking at it. I'm going to have to ask the club members to give me an estimate of the number of, I'll just say it, man hours expended in actually getting this far with the layout. And I'm due for another trip in a couple weeks, so I'll be taking some more footage and hopefully get it out to you soon. Now they've dimmed the lights, so you can see some of the lighting that they've put in at the various buildings that you couldn't ordinarily see. So we're simulating dusk. There's quite a few lights here. And they've got a lighting guy, of course, who is in charge of all this. But really, some parts of the layout are really colorful when they dim the lights. It's a little bit out of focus because my depth of field isn't quite so great with a decreased light, but you get a pretty good idea of the effect. So, thank you very much for watching, and appreciate your interest. And as always, my grateful thanks to the members of the Sun City, Arizona Model Railroad Club. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the video.